The afternoon sun filtered through the stained glass windows of St. Mary's Church, casting gentle rainbows across the worn wooden pews. The old building held the quiet peace that only comes in sacred spaces, where whispered prayers and heartfelt hopes seemed to linger in the air long after they're spoken. Sarah Chen sat in the third row, her hands folded in her lap as she watched her 6-year-old daughter Emma kneel at the altar rail. The little girl's blonde curls caught the colored light from the windows, creating a soft halo around her small frame. Emma's eyes were squeezed shut in concentration, her tiny hands pressed together in earnest prayer. Behind them, unnoticed by both mother and daughter, sat James Morrison. The successful businessman had come to the church seeking his own kind of peace. The weight of his wealth and responsibilities had been pressing down on him lately, and he'd found himself drawn to this quiet sanctuary more and more often in recent weeks. James had noticed the woman and her daughter the moment they'd entered. There was something about the way Sarah moved, a careful grace mixed with quiet determination, that caught his attention. She wore a simple dress, clean but clearly well worn, and her daughter's clothes showed the same careful maintenance that spoke of limited means but unlimited love. Emma's small voice drifted back to where James sat, barely audible but crystal clear in the church's stillness. "Dear God," she whispered, her words innocent and pure, "I know you're really busy up there, but I have something really important to ask you about." James found himself leaning forward slightly, drawn by the child's earnest tone. "My mummy works really hard," Emma continued, her voice trembling slightly. "She has 2 jobs, and sometimes she falls asleep at the kitchen table with her work papers. I tried to wake her up once, but she looked so tired that I just put a blanket on her instead." Sarah shifted in her pew, unaware that her daughter's private conversation with God was being overheard. She'd been struggling for months now, trying to balance her work as a part-time bookkeeper and evening shift at the local diner. The bills kept coming, and no matter how hard she worked, it felt like she was always one step behind. "I help as much as I can," Emma's prayer continued. "I make my own sandwiches for lunch, and I don't ask for new toys or fancy clothes. But I see how mummy looks sometimes, especially when she thinks I'm not watching. She looks ... lonely." James felt something stir in his chest. The child's words carried a wisdom that seemed far beyond her years, and a love that was both beautiful and heartbreaking. "So here's what I'm asking for," Emma said, her voice growing stronger. "I don't need a daddy for me. I have mummy, and she's the best mummy in the whole world. But I think mummy needs someone to take care of her sometimes. Someone who can make her smile the way she makes me smile." The little girl paused, and James could see her shoulders rise and fall with a deep breath. "God, I just want a dad for mummy. Not because she can't take care of she's really good at that, but because everyone needs someone to love them, and I think mummy forgot that she deserves to be loved too." Emma's prayer continued, but James found himself lost in thought. He'd built his fortune through careful investments and smart business decisions, but somewhere along the way, he'd lost sight of the simple human connections that made life meaningful. His penthouse apartment was beautiful but empty, his bank account substantial but cold. "I promise I'll be good," Emma whispered. "I'll eat all my vegetables and I'll help with the dishes, and I won't complain when we have to walk to the store instead of driving. Just please help mummy find someone who will love her like she deserves." The prayer ended, and Emma remained kneeling for a moment longer before rising and returning to her mother's side. Sarah wrapped her arm around her daughter, whispering something that made Emma smile. James watched as they prepared to leave, and something inside him made a decision that would change everything. He stood and walked toward them, his heart beating faster than it had in years. "Excuse me," he said, softly, not wanting to startle them. Sarah looked up, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Yes, I couldn't help but notice your daughter's prayer," James said, his voice gentle. "I hope you don't mind that I overheard." Sarah's cheeks flushed slightly. "Oh, I hope she wasn't being too loud. Sometimes she forgets to use her inside voice, even in church." "Not at all," James smiled. "Actually, I was wondering if you might join me for coffee sometime. I haven't had a real conversation with anyone in longer than I care to admit, and something tells me you might be exactly the kind of person I need to meet." Emma looked up at her mother with wide, hopeful eyes. "Is this him, mummy? Did God work really fast this time?" Sarah laughed, a sound that was both embarrassed and delighted. "Emma, sweetheart, this is just a nice man who wants to have coffee." "Actually," James said, kneeling down to Emma's level, "I think your daughter might be onto something. I've been praying for someone real to share my life with. Someone who understands that the best things in life aren't things at all." Over the following weeks, James found himself spending more and more time with Sarah and Emma. He learned about Sarah's struggles and dreams, her strength and her gentle heart. Sarah discovered that beneath James's successful exterior was a man who had everything money could buy but nothing that truly mattered. Their first coffee became dinner. Dinner became weekend outings. Weekend outings became a deep, genuine connection that surprised them both with its natural ease. 6 months later, James knelt in the same spot where Emma had prayed, but this time he wasn't alone. Sarah stood beside him, tears of joy streaming down her face as he slipped a ring onto her finger. "I guess prayers really do get answered," Emma whispered to her mother as they embraced. Sarah looked at her daughter, then at James, and finally up at the stained glass windows that had witnessed it all. "Yes, sweetheart," she said softly. "Sometimes they do." The church bells chimed the hour, their gentle melody filling the sacred space with music that seemed to celebrate not just the moment, but the beautiful truth that sometimes the most important prayers are the ones spoken by the smallest voices, heard by the biggest hearts.